If you overthink before you start, tweak things endlessly, delay just until it feels right, then feel annoyed with yourself for not having done the thing, this course is for you. If you're struggling to stay consistent lately, posting, selling, showing up, this isn't because you're lazy, unmotivated, or suddenly bad at business. Somewhere between wanting to do something and actually doing it, there's this pause, this hesitation. You freeze, you hesitate, you wait for clarity, energy, or confidence. You tell yourself you'll do it properly later, when it feels easier, when you know more. It's the moment where everything tightens up and stop. All those great intentions grind to a halt. And that gap, that's where perfectionism sets up shop. When it goes into overdrive, it stops being a helpful drive for quality and instead becomes completely exhausting. And here's the thing, pushing harder is not the answer. In fact, that's often what leads straight to burnout or to avoiding the thing altogether. So let's reframe this. This isn't about you being lazy or unmotivated. Perfectionism isn't some deep, dark personality flaw you're stuck with forever. A better way to think about it is as a protective strategy. It's really just fear dressed up in a very, very convincing, productive looking mask. This is where it gets really interesting, because when we look beneath the surface, what feels like you just being responsible might actually be your nervous system crying out for stability. That intense need for things to be perfectly right is often rooted in a deep fear of judgment or a subconscious need to control a world that feels unpredictable. This is a biological response, not a character flaw. I call this voice Perfect Paula. But here's the key. She's not the enemy. She's actually an inner protector. She's the part of you that learned somewhere along the way that being perfect was the safest way to avoid failure or criticism. The problem isn't her, it's that she's been allowed to sit in the driver's seat and run the whole ship. So, how do we work with this? We shift our entire approach. We move from fighting and fixing to simply noticing. The first step isn't to wrestle perfectionism to the ground. It's to get good at seeing when it shows up. That's a huge shift. We're not trying to get rid of this part of ourselves. The goal is to see it clearly. The moment you can name that familiar spiral, the overthinking, the delaying, the checking your work for the 10th time, that's the moment you start stepping outside its control. Awareness is where the freedom starts. Now, let's build on this with some practical tools. These aren't about forcing yourself to do anything. They're about gently releasing the pressure that keeps you frozen so you can start moving again. The first tool is called the emotional weather report. Instead of asking, why am I like this? You ask, what's happening right now? Then you translate the feeling into a colour or a weather pattern. Is it stormy, foggy, bright and sunny? This simple act helps your nervous system feel seen, and that calms the whole system. You don't need to wait for a full perfectionism spiral to use this. You can use it the moment you feel a flicker of hesitation or that urge to tweak something one last time instead of hitting send. Even a subtle sense that something feels off is the perfect time to check the weather. The second tool is about releasing pressure. It's called the balloons of letting go. You write down the looping thoughts, especially the quiet ones that like, I should be further along by now. By naming these pressures and imagining them outside of you, they start to lose their power. You're telling your nervous system, you don't have to hold all of this at once. So where does this lead? It leads to building a safe rhythm. Most of us were taught that consistency comes from discipline, from white-knuckling it. But real, sustainable consistency comes from safety. A safe, visible rhythm is simply a pattern your body can learn to trust. When something is predictable, low stakes and contained, with clear start and end points, your nervous system can finally relax. That structure creates the safety needed for consistent action. With this rhythm, we choose momentum over mastery. Perfectionism tells you that you must be an expert before you begin. But movement is what creates mastery. Small, repeatable actions build skill, and confidence becomes a byproduct, not a prerequisite. We're going to end that here today, but if you want to find out more, see the links below about how you can build real self-trust